Welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro, and you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Justin Bizzarro. You can also find the podcast at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you, everyone who's been reaching out. Yes, we are still planning on doing the summit June 3rd and 4th in Milledgeville, Georgia. The Food and Beverage Entrepreneur Summit will still go on. Even if we don't do it in person, we will stream it online via Facebook and YouTube to anyone who's registered for the event. So the tickets are free. You register at Eventbrite to get your tickets, and that ensures that either you can be there in person if we move forward with in person, and if not, we will be streaming it all to you guys in your homes or wherever you are. But you will need a ticket in order to receive that streaming. So that being said, I have today with us again my co-host, Sandra Vaughn. How are you doing today, Sandra?
I'm well, thank you.
And so, that being said also, Sandra, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before we introduce our guest?
Yes, Justin, thank you for allowing me to co-host with you. My name's Sandra Vaughn. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I have been one for more than 25 years. I have started my career as a pediatric dietitian and then flipped to become a geriatric dietitian. And then most recently, in the last 10 years, I've been in the food service space doing regulatory compliance and also doing food and beverage commercialization, most recently with food service partners. And I kept my toes in the geriatric space because I love working with senior nutrition. So that's been a love of mine. I'm recently bowed out, but I'm excited about our new projects in Georgia.
Thanks, Sandra. And I wanted the audience to know I received about 15 messages over the last 2 days, and the couple of days before that, probably another 6 messages through DM and through email about our next guest, who has been on the podcast before about 2 weeks ago, or actually last month, I guess it was. And regarding her products and the health and maybe the benefits to help fight the coronavirus. So I decided to ask her to come back on. Obviously, we don't know how much it helps scientifically, but I think there are ways we can eat that help our immune system and boost it to handle things like viruses and being sick and stuff like that. So that being said, we have back on Ginger Butts of Back to the Basics 101. How are you doing today, Ginger?
Doing good. Thanks for having me back.
And it's interesting, and I want to say this, and we can get into Ginger's products and Back to the Basics 101, but one of the things we talked about was elderberries and her production of that, and people really latched onto it because they're like, oh, the health benefits and all this. And I believe, Ginger, you've had a surge in business since the coronaviruses and the quarantines have happened for your elderberries products.
Yes, absolute explosion. We're very grateful.
So tell us a little bit about why you think people are buying more elderberry products from you.
Well, 2 years ago, there was a flu epidemic. And the mass media validated that elderberries does, in fact, help fight the flu and reduce flu symptoms. And because the media said it, everybody believed it. And so people like me who are doing herbal remedies, as parents for our family and such, we're rolling our eyes in the back of our head because we didn't really need validation because we were doing it and it was effective, and that was enough, But since then, there have been scientific studies that have been published that do say that elderberry is antiviral and it fights specifically the flu and can reduce flu symptoms and the flu time. And that's when the media declared that. And I know it was 2 years ago because I was building my building at the time. and our sales really surged then. And I say it helped build our building. So I was very grateful for the media validating it. When the coronavirus became what it is, known to us and such, everybody wanted elderberries like they want toilet paper, honestly.
That's an interesting scenario or comparison, but it is kind of true. And the people are asking is, how do I get it? And I'm like, well, go to the website and order, or go to Amazon. Just there's the ability to order it. So go there. I'm sure Ginger has a bunch of it, but it was interesting. And then the wanting more knowledge about it and why and stuff like that. And, it's interesting. You can't always explain why. It's like, why should you eat local honey if you have allergies? For most people, I wouldn't say all people, it helps with your allergies. When you eat local honey, it helps introduce those allergens in a different way to you, and for some reason your body processes them and gains immunity, for lack of a better term, to those allergens. So it's kind of the same. Elderberries, we don't know exactly how it works, but what it does is we do know that based on its properties that it helps fight things like the flu. So this being a virus, similar to influenza, is it's a way to boost our immune systems. And I really want to dive into it. And Sandra, jump in if you have any questions. But let's talk about your concept as a business overall. And you talked about you've always known this, but talk about your herbal remedies that you use in your home, outside of the products that you produce. Back to the basics. I mean, let's really dive into how you treat problems through food.
Well, I guess I'm like a flower child or whatever, because my whole philosophy is, if God created it, it's for our health and our healing. And so I try to get as much of his creation in me in the best form possible. And so honestly, anything that he created, you can read up on and find out scientifically how it helps, certain conditions or what different benefits it has. Going back to elderberries has a bunch of vitamin C in it, and vitamin C, everybody knows vitamin C boosts your immune system. Because there's national products that are synthesized that are, powder vitamin C and such. How much better to get vitamin C from the source? And in my particular product, Elderberries and More, I don't just have elderberries in it. That's the predominant ingredient. But I also have rosehip and hibiscus, because they're one of the best sources of vitamin C on the planet. So you're getting like a triple whammy of vitamin C in our product.
And so let's talk about that a little bit. So basically, the elderberries are giving you a boost to your immune system, and they're helping fight things because, on top of the coronavirus, there's all this stress and fear going on. So when stress and fear happen, our immune systems weaken. So this is a way, and why there's the huge rush to the elderberries is to help build it back up, number one. And number two, if it doesn't need building back up, it's boosting it to be that much stronger to fight something like this that we're dealing with right now.
Right. Justin, I wanted to add that
Did we lose you, Sandra? I think we lost Sandra.
Oh.
But it's okay.
Oh. Wait.
You there?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
my AirPod went away. I was saying that vitamin C is a nutrient that's very unstable. So it doesn't always, what we get from our food versus what we get from a supplement are very different. On so many different levels. For one thing, because vitamin C is unstable, it comes packaged from nature, and I have to agree with Ginger that I've said in my practice 20 some years ago that if it was something that God created, then it was something that we should pay attention to and consume. So the beautiful thing about vitamin C is it comes packaged in nature in components that protect it from becoming destabilized, so that when we consume it from food, we it's that much more bioavailable to us to boost our immune systems. So yes, we do supplement. I do take supplements, but at the same time, if you can get your vitamin C in particular from food, you're going to get a much more bioavailable nutrient. Plus, it acts in synergy with other nutrients that are in that food. So that boosts the bioavailability and nutrient absorption as well. So glad to hear that.
So Ginger, let's talk about your other products and the health benefits, and we'll circle back around on health. And we've talked about them before, but I want to re-emphasize because people are asking: is why are your products healthier? What do you do to them that makes them different than what else is out there? For example, your baked items and things like that.
I think the better question is, what do I not do to them?
There you go.
Makes them healthier, right? So Our first product started with the wheat my husband grows, and I mill it into flour. And so fresh milled flour is as close to the point of nutrition as you can get, because when you get grains, they can last for thousands of years, and once you mill them, then you release the nutrients when they begin to oxidize and such. So our homemade baking mixes come from fresh milled flour, and you can't get that off the shelf. And so any of our homemade baking mixes, I say that's as close to a wheat field as you're going to get when you eat pancakes or brownies from the mixes that we make. And then the plant protein blend, it's just simply 5 organic seeds. It's not rocket science. It's just 5 organic seeds. And I have a registered dietitian nutritionist, Sandra, that works with me, and she just graduated like 2 years ago. So she's a wonderful asset, and she calculates all the nutrition data and stuff so we can put it on the label. And so we just came up with a formula and put the data, nutrition data on it. And so my plant protein is just 5 seeds, and we mill it. And if you look at any other plant proteins, there's so many ingredients you can't pronounce. So there's that. And then we talked about the elderberry. And then our latest is our ranch seasoning. I'm so proud of it, because everybody in the South, I don't know if it's like just a Southern thing or something. Do y'all up there like ranch seasoning a lot like they do down here?
Oh, yes.
Kids, same in Colorado. Yeah, I was going to say the kids eat ranch everything.
I want ranch on everything.
Okay, so the first ingredient in the national brand is dextrose, which is a form of sugar. And it's like, why, people, why? And then the third ingredient is MSG. We're all familiar with that. And then there's like 5 to 8 other ingredients that you can't even pronounce. So everybody loves ranch, but it's just a bottle of not good for you stuff. So I came up with a ranch seasoning, and it's just 7 organic herbs, and that's it. Just 7 organic herbs, and I nailed it. And you add whatever dairy or non-dairy alternatives to it, and you can enjoy a dip or a dressing without all the poison.
And so, I mean, Sandra, do you want to chime in on like sort of what it means on the back of the labels? Because I think this is a good chance to sort of educate people on reading the labels.
Sure. So a lot of times the ingredient label has words that, to Ginger's point, we just can't pronounce. Most of those are in there to perform some function of food stabilization, whether it's stabilizing the texture or whether it's stabilizing the product from a food safety standpoint to prevent the microbial growth that we don't want to get in a shelf-stable product. So, having folks like Ginger that, will develop that seasoning mix for us and make it so that I'm not preparing it every week or so in my home and making it available to me, but yet making it clean label. And we do know that we talk a lot about the 1%, and it's not necessarily the accumulation of just eating an unclean label ranch dressing, but if you think about the accumulation of your day over all the foods that you eat, you're getting a lot of chemicals that aren't found in nature. They're man-made, and yes, our bodies can process them, but for some people, some genetic profiles, they don't process them as well, and they end up, chemicals get stored in our fatty tissues. It gets stored in our liver. So some folks detox those items better than others. But I think, there's a big push now, and there really has been in the last 10 years to try to go as clean label as possible. So I'm grateful to folks like Ginger that are doing that for us, making it more convenient.
Well, and I want to just give an example of this. If anyone's ever gone to California or someplace around the world, they have bans on fish because you can't fish them because there's a buildup of, say, mercury in them. Well, mercury is a chemical that the fish are ingesting, so therefore it's unsafe for us to ingest that chemical from the fish. And so these are the kind of things that we're talking about, and it's not that eating the fish once may do damage. It could, don't get me wrong, but if you accumulate enough times of eating that fish, that mercury then could build up in your own system chemically. So that's sort of what we're talking about here. Like one time, of course it's safe and obviously for consumption of one product, but what happens when we start accumulating in our body, or as Sandra said, the fatty tissues? So similar to not eating that fish that has mercury in it, that's where it's stored for the fish, and the fatty tissue or the meat is, how do we eat better without accumulating those things in our life? And we don't know. I mean, in all honesty, we've only started using some of these chemicals and preservatives more recently. There's people still alive that ate food as they were younger without any preservatives in them. So we really don't know the long-term impact or where we're going with this in general. But we do know that as consumers, we're becoming more educated in that we are starting to look at the labels and demand healthier options. And I think what everyone says, the easiest thing to know whether or not it's okay and it's not going to have chemicals in it is, can you pronounce everything on the back of the label? Do you recognize it as a whole food source, for example? And I think that that's important. And Ginger, I wanted to get back to something that you said, and I want to dive into this because one of the first times I met you, you really talked about this, is what is the difference between the way we process flour on a commercial level versus the way you process flour on your own?
So at the turn of the 20th century, there was a governor in Minnesota. His last name was Pillsbury. And he and his nephew brought over the first steel rolling mills. And prior to that, everyone, the poor people would have like the brown flour and the brown bread, and the wealthier people would have the white flour and the white bread. And when the steel rolling mill came on the scene, everybody was on the same playing field when it came to white flour and bread and such, and the people loved it and demanded more. And 10 to 30 years later, there were two epidemics in America, pellagra and beriberi. Sandra, you know about that?
Yes, but you better fill in the details.
Oh, okay. It's so fascinating to me because they're both the result of a vitamin B deficiency, and wheat is one of the best sources of vitamin Bs. And what the steel rolling mill does is there's three parts to a wheat kernel, and steel rolling mill takes out the bran, the germ, and all that's left is the endosperm, and that's where the gluten is. And and so all people were getting was the endosperm, which is virtually lifeless. There's like no nutrients in it. And there's two epidemics. One was a digestive system disorder and one was a nervous system disorder. And I had heard it said that in the South, the sanitariums were overflowing because in the South, we made biscuits. And so it's just so interesting to me historically reading about it. And the government made the connection, went to the Miller, said, we need to not take this out. And they had a lucrative market because one was going to animal feed and one was going somewhere to another industry. And that's when they compromised and came up with the term enriched, and they added 4 vitamins. Well, maybe initially it was 3 vitamin Bs and 1 mineral iron, and then in '96 they added a 4th vitamin B, folic acid, and so now out of the 35 to 40 nutrients that's in fresh milled flour off the shelf, coming through a steel rolling mill, you're getting 5 vitamins and minerals. And ours, we put the whole berry in a mill, and it grinds between 2 stones, and it comes out ground from the whole thing. Because we're so primitive, So we're not mass produced, and we wouldn't be mass produced because we would lose what we do if we did. So we just keep it small, and we mill it, and it's the whole berry, so you're getting all the nutrients. So many people who are not able to tolerate mass-produced wheat or are allergic to gluten. Now, I'm not talking about celiac people, but I'm just talking about gluten-sensitive or wheat intolerant, are able to tolerate fresh milled flour because it's the whole berry that they're getting.
And I think, too, with the addition of folic acid, what we know now is some people can't convert folic acid to folate. So the addition of the folic acid form in the terminology enriched or fortified can actually be more detrimental to people that can't convert it. And that's just something we've learned maybe in the last 5 to 10 years. But I was just looking through my cabinet, and I have some of your banana bread, Ginger, here
cool.
at my house in Virginia. I'm so excited. So, yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's what I'll do while I'm self-quarantined.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So to take it full circle, and I want to just connect the pieces, it's not like what happened is when we industrialized food is we took shortcuts for profitability, basically. And when we took the shortcuts for profitability, we started robbing the food of its nutrients or its natural benefits to human beings. And while it's important we figure out how to extend shelf life, there's ways that we can do it naturally that don't impact the quality of the food. As we said, a lot of that stuff, as Sandra pointed out, is, it's in there to extend shelf life. So
Yeah.
it's how do we, do it differently. In Europe, people grocery shop more often, so they bring in fresh products. They stop multiple times a week, where we're used to being only shopping once a week or every 2 weeks or whatever it is we're used to as American, because we have that shelf life, where we can get our products to last that long. So, that's just something to think about in what we're talking about here. And when it comes to a situation like we're going through right now with the coronavirus, it's, yes, you can buy a lot of shelf-stable goods, cans of soup, so on and so forth, bottles of tomato sauce, all of that. But it's time, as you read them, this is a good time while you're in your home to read the labels of these items. Why are they shelf stable? Why do they last so long? Some of it's procedure, like heat, that's in a can, or preserving something such as jams and jellies that may preserve because of the way they're packaged in their handled and they create their own sort of environment for food safety and shelf life, and other ones add unnatural or unnormal, I should say, things to them. So there's natural ways to do it, there's processed ways to do it, and then there's chemical ways to do it. The ways we're really talking about is the chemicals in those foods that can cause reactions. So, I mean, it's really taking the time to educate yourself on what is healthy and what's not, from your standpoint, and then what food reacts to and what doesn't. And I have a gluten sensitivity. I also have a white potato sensitivity, but I would have never known until I tried life without bread how sensitive, or the stomach aches I had all the time, or the just constant cramps. And like, I just thought it was part of life. It's happened my whole life. I didn't really think anything of it until it wasn't there anymore, and that started about 8 years ago, where I started noticing it. Do I eat gluten and bread every once in a while? Yeah, of course. But one of the interesting things that happens is Deborah and I go over to Europe a lot. And when we're over there, I have no reaction to most of the gluten. If it's a store-bought bread, I have a reaction. But if it's really natural in an environment from a bakery, I don't have the reaction. And a lot of it is the way they're processing it. Depending on what part of Europe, I'm making a very general statement, obviously. But it's an interesting thing that has happened, and something just messing with the plant that little bit and not giving it to us in its natural form has caused that reaction. And not to mention the inflammation properties that happen with, things like that. So are they worse? Are they better? I don't know. But, when you clean it up, products like gingers, I don't have the reaction. I don't have the stomach aches. I don't have it. And believe me, within a few minutes of eating bread, I can already tell my stomach's starting to hurt. I can already feel my hands start to peel and have a weird reaction. But if it's done properly, I don't have the reaction. It's a very interesting thing for me. So I understand, and I'm an advocate of what you're doing for sure, Ginger. So I think that's important that we recognize that we don't really know as human beings what's working and what's not for us, because we're so used to the commercial food model. We're not really sure what food works better for our bodies and what doesn't. And we're a very complicated machine. Like what fuels you better may not fuel me better. But we need to experiment with it, and the only way to do that is really try natural whole ingredients and items and see what works and what doesn't work, and then try to stay as fresh and natural with your diets as possible. And what do you think, Sandra?
Absolutely. And there's enough evidence just in looking at the number of folks that are doing clean eating and the improvement that they have in so many different types of symptoms, whether it's brain fog or whether it's, just being tired. Things improve when they improve their diet to a whole foods diet. And there is a lot of discussion about what the trend of the day is, whether it's, vegan or paleo or carnivore. There's a whole lot out there that we could talk for days and days and days about. But I think at the end of the day, the best, most sound advice I would give as a dietitian is as many whole foods in the unprocessed state as you can get in a day. That's where your nutrient density comes from.
Yeah, I agree.
You're my people, Sandra.
So, Ginger, I want to, as we start to wrap things up, I think we've really got a lot of great content in there. Let's talk about ways let's talk about how people can order the elderberries from you, and let's talk about different ways they can use the elderberries to integrate it into their lifestyle to sort of help boost their immune system like we discussed. So what are some of your suggested usage for it?
Okay, so when I said elderberries like toilet paper, it's for real. There is no elderberry available in the United States right now. And so right before everything went crazy, God had prepared me without me knowing this was coming. And so I had lots of elderberry. And then when I found out that it was fixing to disappear, I was able to make another big order. So we have lots of elderberry, and it is available on Amazon, but we can't keep up. They're selling it faster than we can get it to them, because literally we hand pack every single one. We weigh out the elderberry because it's the prominent ingredient. And so anybody can order it on my website at backtothebasics101.com, and we will keep those orders. We will fill those orders. I'll cut off Amazon before I'll cut off, like my community and people in my area. And that includes, people in my virtual community too. So we'll keep enough available to be able to provide for my people. And ways to use it is, honestly, so I wrote on the package, take 1 tablespoon daily for maintenance, take 1 to 2 tablespoons every few hours as needed, because you can't make any claims, because we really, like somebody said, we don't know what might work for you, doesn't work for me. And so if you're under the weather, take it every couple of hours till you feel better. If you're doing it just to be proactive, to boost your immune system, just listen to your body. Take it once a day, take it twice a day, however aggressive you want to be with it. You can't overdose on it. You can overdose drinking water, but who does that? And it does taste really good. A lot of people say it tastes like Christmas because it's got cinnamon and clove in it also. So it does taste real yummy. But the directions are super simple. So you just follow the directions on the package and then listen to your body and take it as you need it. And then I'll take it a step further. I'll take it 2 steps further. When you get through making it, you've got this bag full of all these wonderful organic herbs that have so many great properties in it. And so I am drying out the herbs now in the oven so that I can have hot tea at night. Or you can just boil it again and have a diluted form of elderberry tea in your refrigerator and add some ground leaf stevia leaves to it to sweeten it. And then that way you have something to drink besides water, and it's still boosting you on a diluted level. And then I'll take it another way, like if you're a baker, you could take the cinnamon stick out and puree the herbs, the pulp, into almost like a paste, and then make a quick bread with it. So you could follow a banana bread recipe or a pumpkin bread recipe. Instead of using bananas or pumpkin, you can put the elderberry pulp in it. So that's another good way to get it in you.
Oh, that's awesome. So, thanks, Ginger, for joining us, and thank you, Sandra, for hopping on and adding your insight as well. And thank you, everyone in the audience, for listening in. If you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to Ginger directly or Sandra directly. I will put their information, their Instagrams, on the post as I post the podcast, and you can DM them directly if you have any questions. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Nice chatting today.
Thanks, Ginger.
Thank you.